What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's Down and Dirty. We have talked about autonomous equipment. Is it going to take my job? But what we haven't really talked about is what does the future of our industry look like as more of this autonomous equipment comes in, and things like the Cat Command chair or companies like Teleo with their semi-autonomous equipment. How is this going to change the landscape, and what does the operator of the future look like? It's interesting because of the position I'm in. I've gotten to get a good feel for what's coming down the pipeline, and I've got some ideas of how this industry is going to morph over time. And it's going to take time, and it's really going to stretch some people, but it's going to revolutionize the industry, and things are going to change, and I would argue for the better when it comes to contractors and heavy equipment operators. So first of all, let's talk about some of the technologies that are coming down the pipeline that are a lot closer than you think to being here. The first one is things like Cat Command, where you are actually remote operating equipment states away around the globe. You can run a piece of equipment with a very slight lag from a remote operate station with cameras all around the machine. You have screens, you have a full set of controls in front of you, and you have the ability to turn the machine on and off, sign in and out of the machine, and release that machine to another operator. That's one of the biggest things that's going to have an impact on our industry, and these are already being used, by the way. You're going to see these a lot of times in mining applications or in dangerous applications like cleaning out ship holds and things. This technology is already here. But instead of someone being 2 or 3 states away, generally they're, a quarter mile down the pier sitting in an air-conditioned building running this loader while it's cleaning out a ship cargo hold. Now, another piece of technology that's coming down the pipeline is autonomous and semi-autonomous equipment. And again, this technology is here. It's being used in certain applications. It's just not widespread. So what does semi-autonomous mean? Well, a company like Teleo explained to me that in their application, let's take a loader in a quarry pit. I would actually run the machine to go into the pile and scoop the load. And then what I would do is I would record a path to whatever stockpile it is that I need to take this material to over on the other side of the pit. And so one time I'm going to run that route, and I'm going to dump the material, and then I'm going to run the route back to the pile. Now, for every load after that, all I need to do as the operator is do the actual function of the machine. So I need to drive in when the machine shows up to the pile. I need to drive in and I need to scoop, and then I'm going to hit autopilot. And that loader is going to run itself over to that stockpile where I need the material taken. Then I'm going to take over and I'm going to dump it on the stockpile. So if I need to climb up the pile a little bit, I can do that. If I need to move around an obstacle to dump, I could do that as well. Or in a gravel pit situation, if a truck showed up, I'll load the truck. And then again, autopilot, and the unit will drive itself back. Now let's talk about a scraper application. As operators, we're only using our skills during the time that we're actually in the cut or when we're on the fill site and we're actually dumping the bowl. Outside of that, if you think about a scraper operator, the talent is being wasted by just being a driver. This semi-autonomous equipment takes that out of play. Now all of a sudden you are only utilizing your operator's talents because he only needs to be participating with that machine while he's taking a cut and while he's dumping it off in the fill. All the driving in between can be handled by the autonomous equipment. So how do these things all come together, and what does the future job site look like, in my opinion? In my opinion, operators are no longer going to be employed by a single company. Yes, there will always be companies that will employ full-time employees, and you are tied to that company because they really love you as an operator and they want to keep you around, and they're going to pay a handsome price for this. By the way, one of the things that's playing into this whole conversation, the average age in our industry is mid-50s, which means that over half of our industry is going to retire out in the next 5 to 10 years. That's a scary thought. So we need to be able to either have a mass infusion of people into our workforce, or we've got to be able to multiply the amount of value I'm able to bring as an operator to make up for the other 2 or 3 guys that are no longer in seats. That's where all of this comes in. I can absolutely envision a future to where here in my home office, I personally, as Brian Furness, go and spend about $50,000 to $60,000 on an operator chair, a remote operator station. And before you balk at the idea of having to spend that kind of money, think about our fellow tradesmen in the mechanic trades. These guys spend easily $50,000 to $60,000 in tools to get up and off the ground and running. that's really not that big of a deal. If you go to college right now, you're going to be $100,000+ in debt before you even start in the field. So doing a $50,000 to $60,000 investment for me to personally own one of these remote operator stations is not an astronomical price, and it's not that far out of reach for all of us in the trade. So let's go back to the scenario. I purchase one of these seats and I get it set up in my home with some version of high-speed internet. And Starlink counts as high speed, by the way. When CAT brought their CAT command station here to my house in the woods in rural Michigan, I ran a loader in North Carolina and an excavator down in Tanaja Hills, Arizona, and I did that all off of Starlink. So we're not talking about a hard and fast internet connection. It just needs to be high speed and relatively low latency. So I get my operator station hooked up, and then what's going to happen is there will be websites that start popping up, kind of like Upwork. Upwork, if you're not familiar, is a white-collar website where you can go in, you can post yourself up with your pool of talents, and then people can go and put jobs out there that you go bid on, or they can specifically request you for jobs, and then you take them. So for instance, web design. If I want to go get a website done, I go to this website, I tell people what I'm looking for, and then I have contractors bidding to build my website and showing me what their talents are, what their resumes are, so that I can pick whoever I want to build my website. You're going to have a very similar situation here, to where I as a contractor get on this website and say, hey, I need a barn pad built. I have GPS files already available for the job. I need you to build this barn pad for me, and you're going to have 2 days to do it. You might have another contractor that gets on there and says, hey, I run a gravel pit. I need a loader operator to manage and maintain 3 loaders within the quarry, and it's going to be an 8-hour shift. So you can see that contractors will start to populate these websites with all of these job postings and all of these job availabilities where they need operators with remote operate stations. I can go in as Brian Furness, the operator who owns my own station, and I can go, I'll accept that job. I'm going to build that barn pad, and I know I can do it in 2 days. And guess what? I can also accept the job for the quarry guy, because I know that out of my day, I'm really only going to run that loader for about 2.5 to 3 hours of actual operate time. The rest, it's going to be driving between the stockpile and the crusher or the screener plant, and maybe I'll load a couple trucks in there. But for the most part, this thing's going to be driving by itself. So I'm going to accept both of those jobs. And it turns out there's another contractor that needs me to run 2 scrapers as well. But the haul time on the circuit is about 15 minutes round trip. And so I know, again, I'm going to run that scraper for about 30 seconds to a minute at a time. And then for the rest of the 15 minutes, I'm going to let it go on autopilot. So Brian Furness is going to accept all 3 of those jobs. The contractors are going to make sure that the equipment is on site, posted, fueled, and ready to go. And then they're going to give me whatever GPS files I need. So in the morning, I log in. I'm sitting here in my pajama pants. I've got my cup of coffee. I sit down to my remote operator station, and I log into my email. I log into my Upwork website, and I take on all 3 of those jobs. I go to the first job. I log into my dozer. I load in my site files, and I get that machine warming up and ready. Then I'm going to go over to my second job at the quarry, and I'm going to get my 3 loaders, and I'm going to get them fired up. I'm going to get them ready. I'm going to get a quick lay of the land of the gravel pit, figure out my bearings and everything, and I'm going to let those machines warm up. And finally, out in California, I've got my 3 scrapers or 2 scrapers that I need to run. Same thing. I'm going to load my site files, because most of this equipment, when it's going to be remote operate, you're going to need some sort of GPS files to make it really productive. And so I'm going to get those site files loaded in, verify we don't have any weird stuff going on, get those machines warming up. Now, by the time we've gotten the 3rd set of machines warmed up, my dozer over here is ready to roll. So I'm going to do a quick little survey of the property to make sure I kind of have my bearings on this job. I'm going to, kind of orient myself to the site. And about that time, my loader should be warmed up and ready to go. So I'm going to flip over, because all of this is done with just a push of a button in these machines. To switch from a dozer to a loader to a scraper is just a quick button press, and then you've switched over. And as long as I, as Brian Furness, am logged into these machines, no one else can take them over unless someone physically on site gets in the machine and decides to do something. I'm going to get in my loaders. I'm going to get in one loader, and I'm going to go record my route. And if I have one loader that's going to stockpile, I'll record that one. If I have a second route I need to record, I'll do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go scoop and send it on its way. I'm going to take my second loader, scoop, send it on its way. Third loader, scoop, send it on its way. And then I'm going to flip over and I'm going to do the exact same thing with my 2 scrapers. I'm going to record my route. I'm going to get a bowl for each scraper and send them on their way. And now I'm on autopilot with all 5 of those machines for the next 5 to 15 minutes, just depending on the scenario. Again, this is something where I'm going to have to balance my day. And then while those are in autopilot, which I can monitor from another screen in front of me, I can make sure that I know where those are at. I'm going to flip back over to my dozer, which is going to be mostly manual control, and I'm going to start stripping topsoil for my barn pad. And the whole time I'm keeping an eye on my other equipment over here. And when we get to a point where my loader shows up where it needs to be, I'm going to stop running my dozer, just set it at idle. I'm going to flip back over to my loader, dump, hit it on autopilot. By about that time, maybe my scraper shows up. I'm going to flip over to my scraper. I'm going to let that bowl roll out, and then I'm going to send it back on its way. And about that time, we've still got a little more travel time with my other units. I'm going to flip back over to my dozer, and I'm going to keep cutting in my barn pad. Because again, I've got 2 days on this barn pad, and I know it's really going to take me 1, which is why I was able to take on these 2 or 3 additional jobs. So now you have one operator that's running 5 to 8 pieces of equipment. Could you imagine if we do this with haul trucks? All I've got to do is back up to a pile and dump with a haul truck, and generally your haul trucks are going to have 5 to 10 minute round trips. I can absolutely be running another piece of equipment while I'm running these haul trucks. Now we've taken my one operator's abilities and I'm putting my operator abilities to use full time because I'm not wasting time on travel time. I'm just operating. I'm that much more efficient as an operator. It benefits me as an operator because guess what? I'm triple dipping on pay. I'm getting paid by 3 separate jobs, and as long as I'm being safe and I'm making sure the work is done within my allotted timeline, the contractor doesn't care. I'm getting paid, the contractor's getting production. Now, what does that look like from a contractor standpoint? Well, guess what? You don't have to hire me, Brian Furness, a highly skilled operator, at a very expensive rate with benefits, with insurance and all this other stuff, workers' comp. You don't have to carry workers' comp on me. I'm just an independent contractor. You hire me for the day, and as soon as that job is done, I'm off your books. What happens if a machine breaks down? Well, traditionally, you got a very expensive operator sitting there next to the machine until we call the mechanic out and figure out what's going on. In this situation, hey, I fire off a quick call or an email because I have the contractor's contact information when I accept the job. I'm just going to fire off a quick phone call or email and say, hey, this unit's having some oil pressure issues, or I'm getting some weird responses from the hydraulics. Have your mechanic take a look at it. I'm going to log out of the machine. Boop, log out of the machine. One of my 3 loaders is now no longer under my control and I don't have to worry about it. Now, we will see how the system evolves as to whether I get paid for the rest of the day as the operator, or maybe you get a discount as a contractor because I didn't complete the work. But at the end of the day, we don't have an expensive operator sitting there stranded with a broken down machine. I'm free to continue being productive elsewhere. By the way, one of the other advantages to this whole system, we can do 24 hours. If we have a job site that's conducive to a 24-hour work environment, I, as Brian Furness, the American, might have a counterpart over in Britain that he's going to log in, and there's going to be a little exchange over Google Meet, for instance. We're going to get together, and while I'm finishing out my day, I'm actively operating. We're talking over Google Meet here, and he's watching my screen, and I'm explaining to him, hey, over here's my stockpile, over here's my topsoil pile. This is where I'm at on this cut here, and by tomorrow morning, I'd really like to be to this point if you can set me up. Okay, no problem. All right, I'm going to hand the machine over. I click a button, and I hand that machine over to my counterpart in Britain or India or Pakistan or wherever it is. It doesn't matter. The machine doesn't care because it's just an operator. And the machine is only down for a matter of 2 or 3 minutes while we do the physical switchover of my machine letting go and releasing that machine and his computer taking over control of that machine. And then the machine is back to being productive. This is what the job site of the future looks like. And it's closer than you think. And by the way, I know there's a lot of people that go, that'll never work on regular jobs. Absolutely it will. If Rick and I in our little business need a barn pad done, but But Rick and I are both tied up on another job. If we have a machine that's just equipped to be operated remotely, we don't have to pay for the command station, we don't have to pay for any of the other stuff. We just need the technology there that it can be operated remotely. We can go drop that on a job site and post our job. And that machine will be productive while he and I aren't even there. From a safety standpoint, you've got employees on a road crew, no problem. These machines have so many sensors on them, they're actually safer than having an operator in the cab. There have been multiple cases where a machine has seen a person that an operator would not have seen due to glare on windshields or certain conditions such as actual visibility over the rear of the machine. These machines are actually really safe to run around people. Now, you're not going to have a laborer working right alongside a remote operate machine because of the lag and the delay, but think about the number of jobs on a highway job, for instance, where you don't have an operator working directly side by side with that machine. I bet you could easily take one of, I don't know, probably 70%, 60 to 70% of the jobs on the side of the highway and run them remotely without a problem. This is what the future of our industry looks like. And it's going to make a huge difference in the way these job sites operate. And think about a quality of life for us as operators. Sure, you don't have the great benefits package because you're not with a steady company, but who cares? If I'm able to triple dip on my income because I can monitor multiple machines in a day, that's more than going to make up for what I gave up in benefits. I can go buy my own benefits. If I want to take tomorrow off, guess what? As an operator, I'm not beholden to my excavation employer that I have to be there tomorrow. I just don't accept jobs for tomorrow. And instead, I head off to the park with the kids. This is what the future looks like. And it's exciting because it's going to make such a big difference, not only for contractors, but for us as operators. So, just wanted to crack your minds open as to what potentially is coming down the pipeline and get you a little excited about it. As always, I hope this makes you think, and we'll catch you on the next Down and Dirty.